Hey, look at you.
Juan, good to see you.
Yeah, me too, thank you.
Mamash food. There's
Yeah.
fruit and tuna and brownies.
Please leave your message for Victor McKay.
Mamash food. Funny. I hope not. So, you think we're gonna make 10?
I hope so.
I hope so too. Usually get some of the women who sit there who don't speak English, who speak Persian,
Oh.
and the other woman is, "Whoop." You gotta give us warning if we're gonna stand the Torah.
For that Torah cover, Rosemary with the certain.
Is that the middle one?
Yeah.
Yeah. This is the first Kiddush where there's mamash food.
You mean-
Fish.
Oh, because we have to have a meal, so I told Rana that there has to be, this for Sudash and Shida has to be an actual meal, so.
Yeah, you need the tuna fish. That makes a difference. I must say, in years past,
Yeah.
there used to be gefilte fish on the Kiddush.
Really?
And oh, yes.
Oh.
They had little gefilte fish balls.
Oh, Rana said it's always just been fruit and macaroons.
That is not true.
Well,
That is, well, let me put it, excuse me. That is not in sync with my recollection.
got it.
Perhaps I am mistaken. Wouldn't be the first time.
No, you might be right, that's what she's told
Yeah.
us.
And I can understand it would be much more difficult in this day and age. People would get there and take them all.
That sounds right.
But they help make the minion.
Yeah,
I hope they
Yeah.
do.
Who?
For the people, whatever, there's some.
the regulars.
The regulars, yes.
We don't need the computer. If the camera's on, we don't need the computer. We only ever need the computer for Daily Minion for Mike Harris, but we don't need it anymore now. Cause now we have that, so, yeah, as long as that's on, then it should be okay.
Oh, that over there? That camera?
The whole reason we have that camera is so that we don't need to have a computer on the shulchan.
Oh, nice, that's good.
Yeah.
So is David Kaplan here all the time?
He comes on Zoom sometimes or live stream. He's not on right this second, but,
Yeah.
that doesn't mean that he's not on live stream, he's just not on Zoom.
We have no way of knowing.
Yeah, oh, that's right, with
Without
live
Zoom.
stream.
Right, yeah, the live stream doesn't have people's names, just
Wait a minute. Where's your total?
Yeah, so many people are away.
What?
That way, otherwise,
Oh, it
Bobby
does?
is in
Only
Atlanta
that one has the total?
Oh, yeah.
with his family, and I know that,
I'll never be able to find her until you send it.
Joe and Marisol, Joe generally comes, but
Yeah.
he's been under the weather and hasn't been out.
I saw him today.
They were there today?
I thought that was today.
I saw Mary's on, I didn't.
They were there, she
I thought I saw Joe
read
leave.
from Shirashirilo there.
Oh,
Yeah, she was here for sure, and I thought I saw him leave before her, but maybe I'm
Yeah,
mistaken.
that would be it.
99%.
I feel bad that I didn't go and say hello. After right here, I had time to go to the library meeting and say hello to people.
Mhm.
And I just was really tired and
Yeah.
I went home.
Yeah.
But, oh.
I saw people leaving pretty quickly out of Library Minion, because as I was leaving, Library Minion wasn't even done yet, and then as I was leaving, people were just flooding out of the building, so.
Well, there's no reason to stay for Kiddush.
Right.
When there's no cholent. Although, no, the rule is that, my understanding Well,
Oh,
when Rabbi Rambam was the Moradatra,
Yeah.
one was permitted to eat kitniyot. Because he
You can
ruled that kitniyot are okay.
Really?
Is that still the view of the shul?
No.
No kitniyot?
The shul, well, Rabbi Klickfeld himself and I eat kitniyot in our homes, but only since 2015 when the RA deemed it appropriate to do so. The shul still does not eat kitniyot.
oh, how interesting.
Keeping it to the highest level for anyone else to know and to feel questioned about the.
Yeah, and
costume
it's not so
the
much highest level, it's more so just like comfort level, because not everybody is comfortable eating kitniyot. There's nothing wrong with kitniyot, it's just that not everybody is accustomed to eating it.
That was the rule in 2015. They said kitniyot are permitted to be
The
eaten.
RA, yeah,
The RA.
yeah,
I did not know that.
yeah.
It's like, and I remember only by surprise at
What?
David Grossman's wedding,
What?
I saw that there were many, or several conservative rabbis there.
Oh,
And my understanding from the past was that that was one of the things that conservative rabbis could not do, would be attend a marriage between a Jew and a non-Jew.
Yeah.
You could go to the,
You can't
reception
officiate,
afterwards.
but you can attend.
yeah, but that was changed later than 2015, that was like
They
18 or 19.
It wasn't changed, it was more so just kind of like understood. It was not, I don't think it's written down anywhere.
Really?
I don't think. If it is written down somewhere, I haven't paid attention. I know that I know that it's now okay to attend and just not to officiate, because
Right.
I've only attended one, but I've attended.
I agree.
But I don't know, I don't think, yeah, I don't know where it would be written down, because it's not,
Law committee?
right, but it wouldn't be a tshuva,
No.
so I don't know where it would be written down.
Interesting question.
Yeah, it probably went out like in an email, in which case it is written down, but not like for the public.
Because I know it used to be that if you, prior
Yeah.
to about 2018, wherever it was, give or take a year or two, you could be, there would be severe sanctions if you
Yeah.
went to a wedding between a Jew and a non-Jew.
Yeah.
And that I know is permitted. When I see Elliot there, then I know it's okay.
Yeah, it's, I definitely know that it's okay. It was permitted after I was ordained, so I remember in rabbinical school, we talked about how we couldn't go. But yeah, I don't know that it was like officially written down, but kitniyot definitely was, it's a tshuva.
I love Elliot's response to all this, because 40 years ago, he said he was dealing with what was going on with peanut butter.
Peanuts, yeah.
Peanuts, if it's okay, is it smooth, but is it okay if it's chunky?
Yeah,
Well,
my
what happened
family's,
with
hello,
peanut?
my family's always eaten peanuts.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love
But then
it.
someone asked him, so Elliot, what do you do at home with respect to this? And he responded, whatever Marlon
Marlon
said.
Yeah.
Marlon doesn't eat kidney.
Good to see you.
For me,
Moadim l'simcha.
Moadim
I know.
le-simcha.
That's
Right.
right.
Oh,
Moedim l'simcha. You got it right. You get a gold star, and you get a
I've been going up
response.
to everybody saying it.
And you get a response,
what is it?
Chagim uzmanim l'saso.
That's right.
And you can also say to that, same to you and more of it.
That's right.
Saying,
That's good.
I could have brought that tshuva. I didn't think that people didn't know it. We could have looked at that today. It's a good tshuva. I mean,
Tshuva
basically,
about-
it's like a very classic example of how custom becomes law in Judaism. That you, because so many Ashkenazi Jews grew up in homes and in geographic areas, really, where the things that we call kitniyot were considered chametz because they could be ground and made into, like chickpea flour, for example, right? Like you could make it into a flour. That because it could be made into flour, people thought, oh, well then it must be chametz. But chametz is really just the grains that are chametz. Like that's
The
it.
big five.
That's all. Right.
Right.
It's only those grains. But because of, it's similar to like, oh my gosh, what's the term? Mart Ein, right? Like when you go out to a vegan restaurant, you order a cheeseburger, or if someone doesn't know it's a vegan restaurant, are you putting a stumbling block before the blind that I, as a rabbi, will eat a cheeseburger, right? And now all the Jews who see me eat a cheeseburger think that you can. And by the way, it doesn't actually appeal to me in general, but I wouldn't eat it out because I think it's confusing if someone were to see me eating. But Robert Goodwin doesn't hold by that. He loves vegan cheeseburgers. But the idea behind kitniyot is purely visual. It's purely that it can look like chametz, right? Which again is just a Mart Ein issue. But the substances themselves has never been chametz, ever, ever, ever. They've just been considered something that grew in a different part of the world than Ashkenazim were used to, which is, by the way, why Sephardic Jews have always eaten them, because they grew up in an area where
Rice?
that wasn't chametz, we ate it all the time.
Rice, you say rice, we can't eat rice for 8 days?
Right, so
That
rice,
ain't gonna happen.
beans of all kinds, corn, right, like all of those things, peas, which I didn't grow up eating, lentils, right? No, pasta is still chametz. But anything.
Well, those legumes, green beans as well, and peas.
Right.
puffed
But
up,
like,
yeah.
but anything, like you can eat brown rice pasta if it doesn't have anything else in it, right? Because if you eat kitniyot, there's nothing else in it because it's gluten free and it's made out of rice, which is kitniyot, not chametz. So the tshuva is a really beautiful example of how something that can be a custom in a community turns into law, even though there's no lawful base for it whatsoever. Kitniyot were always okay to eat, but Ashkenazim deemed it not okay to eat based on being confused.
And that's right, and what goes on now is that because it's been the tradition of our ancestors
Yeah.
for years, it was as well, we can't change it, that would be a defilement of
Well, so
those
now
prior
people,
actions.
like in my own parents' home, they will eat, my dad has type 1 diabetes, so protein is very important for him. So we've always eaten peanuts, which were a whole different category and conversation. We've always eaten peanut butter. But when this tshuva came out, we decided to start eating garbanzo beans, because my dad is not only a type 1 diabetic, but also a very picky eater. So that's something that my mom knows that she can throw into a salad and he'll eat it and get some protein. But she will not allow us to make popcorn. She's like, that's too far. You cannot make popcorn, that's taking it too far. And same with, she's okay with like soy products. There's a whole list of things that you can eat. Tofu is okay as long as it's kosher for Passover, which is a very bizarre thing because it's still processed. So processed items still need to be hechshered kosher for Passover.
What if you buy it before Passover?
Yeah, tofu still has to be hechshered kosher for Passover.
Oh,
Which
really?
I actually, I don't eat tofu on Passover, but I always have it in my house in case like I run out of something and I need it. And I didn't know that the year that I went to use it, and then I checked and I couldn't use it. But because it's still processed, unless it says gluten-free and organic, like you don't know what else it's been processed around, so it could be around other wheat products. Because just being vegan doesn't mean it's not gluten-free. So, but Aaron Alexander is like the source for all Pesach stuff, and so he writes a what's it called? Like
Newsletter?
no, it's like it's like a digest almost of all of the different items that you can buy before Passover without a Passover hechsher, all the items that you can buy during Passover without a Passover hechsher, and then all the items that always must have a Passover hechsher, or the items that switch over that during Passover you must have a hechsher on them. So I just kind of live by that.
Is that on his, does he have a website?
It's on the Rabbinical Assembly website, but you can Google it. You can just Google Passover, I think it's called supplement, I can look after Shabbat.
That would be fascinating to have.
Yeah, I always look up at the beginning of the season, I always look up Passover 57, 80, whatever, and it always is the first thing that comes up. And it's great because I do all of my shopping at Trader Joe's, and then
Really?
like, yeah, all
I'm
of
shocked.
my
Who would have thought you shopped at Trader Joe's?
all of my
I
stuff
gotta go
is
there.
Yeah.
like I got. Oh, that's right. I saw you there. I was like, why did you say that? That's right. So like I got all my dairy products. That's when actually I got them. I got all my dairy products. I can get eggs there. Everything has to be unflavored. So like Greek yogurt I buy from Trader Joe's. Regular milk that you use like in coffee or whatever, Trader Joe's.
that's
Dried
okay.
fruit you can buy from Trader Joe's as long as it doesn't have any other derivatives in it other than fruit. It's great, and it saves hundreds of dollars because you're not going to Glotmart where everything is hiked up just because it can be. And then there are certain things, like on Friday, I was hosting my family for Shabbat dinner, I realized I didn't have certain things, and once Passover starts, unless it's produce, you can't buy it from a regular grocery store, so I had to go to Glotmart. But, you know, those very few things are much less expensive than buying all of your groceries from Glotmart, so that's,
Yeah. Wasn't the
Okay.
thing that had changed though, is that it was an issue, one of the issues was that it may have been prepared on the holiday itself and therefore it was a problem to
so that's why
be
you can't
able to
buy it during Pesach.
Yeah.
Because before Pesach, 1/60th of chametz is still able to be nullified. Once Pesach starts, chametz can't be nullified at all, it's chametz. So once something is potentially even in contact with chametz, you can't have it in your home during Pesach. So that's why you have to buy like dairy items, for example. Like my friend ran out of yogurt and she texted me on Thursday and said, can I buy it from Trader Joe's? And I said, no, you have to buy it from Glotmart. Because at this point now, you don't know when those products were made. And they could have been made in a factory or whatever that they could have been contaminated with chametz. Even if it says gluten-free, you can't buy
But
it.
I don't understand that. Couldn't they have been contaminated when you bought them?
But before Passover, there's a law in Judaism where chametz is anything, treif, chametz, whatever, is nullified at 1/60th. So if there's a crumb in
Oh.
your yogurt before Pesach, it's nullified as if it's not there. Once Pesach begins, there's no nullification. So you can't have any chametz whatsoever. So.
Just eat matzah and you're safe.
Oh, right, does anyone need some matzah? We have extra boxes. Does anyone need matzah?
I got
That seems
plenty.
like a foolish question, but does
It's funny that you say that. When I hosted my family last night, I realized I only had gluten-free matzah, which I prefer, but I didn't want to say motzi over, so I had to ask my mom to bring over a box of matzah when they came, which I've never run out of matzah before. So this year I wasn't really home, so I only bought a box of gluten-free matzah, and I didn't.
So you're covered for matzah. I don't
Yeah.
have to bring a box tomorrow and leave it in your office.
I'm good. I'm going to Vermont tomorrow to be the rabbi in residence for
Oh.
Passover camp. So
Oh, nice.
that's what
wonderful.
all this stuff is. It's all my
Oh, yeah.
teachings that I'm doing along there.
That is
Yeah.
wonderful.
Well,
Oh, what a great way. In years gone by, we would do the same. We would be here for the Seder.
Yeah,
And then after the Seders, we would
Go
go
there.
there for Kol HaMoed and the end of
Nice.
the Chag.
nice,
And it was really very nice. That was when Rabbi Dan was.
very nice.
I remember Rabbi Dan.
I've never been for Passover camp.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm excited about it.
Is that for adults or just kids?
Everyone. It's for families, adults, young
Oh,
professionals. There are 500 people there, I think.
Wow.
It's a really insane.
that is a huge turnout. They
That's-
did not
Yeah,
have 500.
maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that number's wrong. Hello.
That seems high.
But
Oh.
all right, we're at 9.
Wait. Yes, we're at 9.
Yeah.
Oh, how
We'll
about?
see. We'll wait one more minute, and if we're
The
still
woman who is always here, I can't remember her name, who speaks
Farsi.
Farsi.
Yeah, I also don't remember her name, but she She was here this morning.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, the one I always do grape juice to at the end of Abdallah, that one. I know what you mean. I keep forgetting her name, but it's on her walker. I have to know how to pronounce it.
Yeah. The bulletin said 7, which was incorrect, and then a correction went out that said 6:45, so.
So we should wait.
I must
I mean,
say,
it's 7 now, but.
I mean, it was a wonderful way to spend 15 minutes.
Yeah,
learning
happy
about
to,
the Hilchot
happy to
Pesach.
chat.
I gotta say, that's, you know, you should speak on Shabbat Hagadol.
There you go. There you go.
In fact, ironically, our crowd was anything but gadol in terms of the turnout on that day. I remember.
Well, we had 2 different services,
I mean,
so you might have been in a smaller service.
And then the sanctuary was pretty small,
Yeah.
which I found ironic with it being Shabbat Hagadol.
Yeah,
The library meeting was pretty packed.
yeah, I'm sure.
As the main sanctuary.
Yeah. Lots of people went away this year for Pesach, so
Okay.
the library meeting crowd doesn't really ever go away, so that crowd stays pretty consistent, but in terms of the families and stuff that come to Beitenu and to the main sanctuary, a lot of people, because Passover was at the beginning of a week,
Right.
it was connected to a weekend, a lot of people went away. Next year will be even worse. Not
Oh, yeah.
worse, but like people will go away because it starts Saturday night,
Right.
first night Seder.
First night Seder is Saturday night.
So Camp Ramah, they don't have the seders, they just have.
They
do.
do have Seders,
Oh, they
yes.
do?
I'm just saying, that's what I did. I didn't want to miss the Seders here
Yeah.
in the community, but after that, let's get out of here.
Yeah,
It was
people
very
can come after the Seders or come in time for, like BJ and his whole family were here for, the Siyum on Monday, and then they went to camp,
Oh, okay.
and they've been there since, so. Yeah. All right, well, why don't we start, Alan, do you wanna lead us in Mincha?
It'll be a very short mincha, but I'll be pleased to do so.
And we will hopefully get another person for a reading, or else Marshall will do it out of a chumash, in which case.
Then I can have 2 out of 5.
Yeah, 2 out of 5, that's right.
Is it still appropriate to dine with Talmud without the
Even though
minyan?
I came, I
Yeah.
didn't help.
You're still leading.
Okay.
Okay, we're on page 214.
אשרי יושבי ביתך, הודיע לך סלע. תהילה לדוד. פותח את ידך ומסביר לך רצון. תהילת נא ידע בפי, ויברך בשר שם קודשו לעולם ועד, ונחנך יה, מעתה ועד עולם, הללויה. ובא לציון גואל. ואתה קדוש ישבתי לו ישראל, וקרא זל זה ואמר, קדוש קדוש קדוש, ענה צבאות מלוך על הארץ כבודו. ותישאני רוח ואשמע אחרי קורש גדול, ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו. אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. תיתן אמת ליעקב, חסד לאברהם, אשר נשבעת לאבותינו ממקדם. ויבדחו בך ידי שמך, כי לא עזבת דושך אדוני, אדוני חפץ למען צדקו, יגדיל תורה ויאדיר.
Okay, so we still don't have a minion. I could teach and then see if we get a minion and then do Torah reading and then go straight from Mincha to Mariv. Or we could just read out of Chumash. What do people prefer?
Flexible either way.
Yeah, but Lichvod Marshall, he's done all the work and got ripped off once before, well, ripped off is the wrong word, was unable to read previously because there was no minion. Why don't we continue with new teaching from you,
Okay.
and I think that would work out just fine.
All right, so why don't we do that? The one thing I have to do is just be careful we can't go too late into Mincha or else we can't do Mincha. So we won't go too long. If we really see that we're not getting a minion, then we'll just turn to Torah service with a Chumash. Okay, so I started to look at Achrei Mot at the Parsha for this week, even though the upcoming few days is going to be still Pesach and Pesach Torah readings, but then as we get to Shabbat, it'll be Achrei Mot. So I wanted to look at Achrei Mot in anticipation of the Torah reading for Shabbat morning, and the first Stevie. Wow. Okay. So Stevie will be our 10th. So just I'll tell you. I started teaching so that we could wait to do Torah service with the 10th. So let me just tell you what we're going to do later, and then we'll do it later. So I started looking at Achrei Mot, and I was very taken by the Or HaChaim's commentary on the first line, and it's a very long commentary. I think I brought you 2 pages, and there's like, I don't know, 3 more or something. The Or HaChaim goes very deep into the first sentence of Achrei Mot. So after Mincha, we will dive into just the Or HaChaim's commentary on the first line of Achrei Mot, and that was a nice little taste before we finish Mincha and then do the teaching afterwards. All right.
ואני תפילתי לך אדוני את רצון אלוהים ברוב חסדך ענני באמת אישך ויהי בנצרון ויאמר משה קום אדוני ויפוצו אויביך וינוסו משנאיך מפניך כי מציון תצא תורה ודבר אדוני מירושלים ברוך שנתן תורה לעמו ישראל בקדושתו.
ונצח והוד כי חוב השמיים ובארץ לך אדוני הממלכה ונעשה לכל דרוש רוממו אדוני אלוהינו וישתחוו לאדם רגליו קדושו רוממו אדוני אלוהינו וישתחוו להר קודשו כי קדוש אדוני אלוהינו.
This is not the right place. Hold on.
It should just be in last week's Parsha, is it not?
This is.
Will be Achrei Mot, which is on page 679 in the Chaim.
Nope, this is Korach.
You're welcome.
Oh yeah, we're in Pari.
For those of you on Zoom at home following along from different Chumash, it'll be chapter 16 of the book of Leviticus.
This is Rebar.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, but this Torah should have been rolled for this. It just, the last time I used this Torah, it was in the correct place, so I'm not sure what happened.
Adonai, right? Okay, this is,
You can keep going.
this is from the latter part of Acharei Mot.
There you go.
Right, because I'm reading that.
Yeah, yeah.
Beteinu,
Oh, you're right in the middle, part.
this coming week.
Great.
Right.
All right. ותגלה ותרם אחותו לנו בזמן קרוב, ויחום פתתנו פליטת עמו בית ישראל, לחנוך עשר ולרחמים רצון ונאמר אמן. הכבוד הוא אין כבוד לתורה יעמוד. Chana, you want the first aliyah? That's okay. You don't need your anything. I mean, I don't know what you're talking about, but you don't need anything. You don't need anything.
You just use the.
Your ID, yeah. Exactly. You don't need your ID either. Okay, hold on 1 second. Exactly.
This is, uses a.
Okay, but tell me your Hebrew name. Ta'amad, Chana
Chana, Bat Nehemiah.
Bat Nehemiah ve'osnat, Aliyah Rishon.
Okay. Baruch, Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamporach. Baruch Adonai Hamporach le'olam va'ed. Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bahar banu mikol hamim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch ata Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Vaydaber Adonai El Moshe Acharei Mot Shnei Bnei Aharon B'kor Vatam Lifnei Adonai Vayamutu Vayomer Adonai El Moshe Daber El Aaron Achicha V'yal Yapo V'choled El HaKodesh V'beit La Parochet El Pnei HaKaporet Asher El Haaron V'lo Yamut Ki Be'anan Ira'eh Al HaKaporet Bezod Yavo Aaron El HaKodesh Bifar Ben Rakar Lechatat Ve'er Leolah Ketonet Bad Kodesh Yilbash Umiknesei Vad Yual Besaro Uvavneit Bad Yachkor Umisnefet Bad Yitznof B'dei Kodesh Hem V'rachatz B'mayim Et Besaro Ulveisham Umeyeh Dadat B'nei Yisrael Yikach Shnei Sirei Izim Lechatat V'ayel Echad Leolah V'ikriv Aharon et Parachatat Asher Lo V'chiper Ba'ado Uv'ad Beito V'lakach et Shnei Hasir Beito V'lakach Beito Beito is that it? That's it. Beito right. I guess it again with that.
Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'haye olam natan b'tochenu. Baruch ata Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Steve, you want to leave? Ya'amad.
Okay, let me just stand here again.
It's just down there. That's
Oh, the other side.
Leor Yisrael,
Ve'or Yisrael.
Ben Nachum Yehud Tzvi,
Ben Nachum Yehuda Tzvi.
Verachel.
Verachel Yasheni.
Baruch Hu Es Adonai Mevorach, Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Leolam V'ed, Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Hamim V'nasan Lanu Es Toraso, Baruch Atah Adonai Nosein HaTorah.
Amen. V'lachach shnei haseirim v'hamidotam lifnei Adonai petach ol hamoed v'natan Aharon al shnei haseirim goralot goral echad Adonai v'goral echad Azazel v'kriv Aharon et hasair asher Allah alav Hagorol Adonai v'yasahu chatat v'hasair asher Allah alav hagorol Azazel yamod chai Lifnei Adonai lechaper alav l'shalach oto la'azazel hamidbara v'ikriv Aharon et parachatat asher lo וכיפר בעדו ובעד ביתו, ושחט את פר החטאת אשר לו.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher nasan lanu Toras emes v'chei olam b'tapasochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noseinu Torah. Yeah.
Joey, will you lift the Torah for us?
At 2:00 in the morning, I woke up and I read the whole Tehillim of Yom Shabbat.
Amazing, let's do this right now. Ta'amad, what's your Hebrew name?
Carmela
Carmela
bat Georgia.
Bat Georgia, Lalaya Shlishit. Okay, so now you're gonna
shake it,
kiss
touch
where
it.
he's gonna read.
Page 681, verse 13.
ברכו את אדוני המבורך.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר בחר בנו מכל העמים ונתן לנו את תורתו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Amen.
לקח מועמקתה גחלי אש מעל מזבח מלפני אדוני ומלוא חופניו כתורת סמים דקה והביא מבית לפרוכת ונתן את הקטורת על אש לפני אדוני וכיסה ענן הקטורת עד הכפורת אשר על העדות ולא ימות ולקח מדם הפר ויזע ואצבעו על פני הכפורת קדמה ולפני הכפורת יעשה 7 פעמים מן הדם באצבעו ושחט את שעיר החטאת אשר לעם והביא את דמו אל מבית לפרוכת ועשה את דמו כאשר עשה אדוני לדם הפר והיזה אותו על הכפורת לפני הכפורת וכיפר על הקודש מטומאות בני ישראל ומפשעיהם לכל חטאתם וכן יעשה ליהו מועד השוכן איתם בתוך טומאתם וכל אדם לא יהיה באוהל מועד בבואו לכפר בקודש עד צאתו וכיפר בעדו ובעד ביתו ובעד כל קהל ישראל.
Yes, again.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת וחיי עולם נטע בתוכנו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Amen. Please rise for the lifting and wrapping. Alan will get a chair for Joey. Carmela, just move a little bit for Joey. Just move a little, just so he can get to the chair. Whenever you're ready. Vezot haTorah asher sam Moshe lifnei bnei Yisrael al pi Adonai eyad Moshe. Eitz chaim hi lamachazikim ba v'tomechei hameushar. Eitz chaim hi lamachazikim ba v'tomechei hameushar. Deracheha דרכי נועם וכל נתיבותיה שלום. דרכי Alan, וכל נתיבותיה שלום. יין, 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 Page 222. No, 221, sorry. Sorry?
I'm giving Alan the source.
Yeah. They'll take it.
Page first.
I think you're the only one using that book. But happy to have you tell the page numbers.
Oh, yeah, I took it. I usually use that.
Oh, yeah, Alan likes that. Page 221.
Yahalelu et Shem Adonai, ki niskav shemo levado, ol eretz v'shamayim, vayarem keren le'abo, te'lalecha hasidav, livnei Yisrael amgrovo, hallelujah, leDavid mizmor. Sushar Moshechem, Usupitchei Olam, Yavo Melech HaKavod, מי זה מלך הכבוד, אדוני צבאות, ומלך הכבוד צלע. ובנו יאמר. כי לקחתו נתתי לכם, תורתי תעזובו, עצכם חיים מרכסים בה, ותמכך מאושר, דרכך דרכנו, וכל נתיבותיך שלום, השיבנו אדוני לך, ונשובה חדש ימינו כקדם.
We're going to do the Amidah right after Chatzi Kaddish. I just want to point a few things out. We're going to do the whispered Amidah first, and then Alan will do a repetition. But in your whispered Amidah on page 227, we have the specific paragraph for Pesach, so please make sure to insert that. And then once we go back and do the Amidah with Alan, we will do the Kedusha. So for right now, we're on page 222, the Chatzi Kaddish, and then we'll begin the Amidah in a whisper on page 223.
יתקדע ויקדש שמי רבה, בעלמא דיבר קירותי ומליך מלכותי, בחייכון ובימיכון רחדכו בישראל, בגלה בזמן קריב אמרו אמן. יש רבה ברח לעולם ולמר מיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפרע ויתמם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתעלה שמי דקודשה בריחו. לאלה מן גו ברכתה ושירתה, תושבתה ונחמתה דרן בעלמא ואמרו אמן. Amen.
your Amidah, please continue at your own pace. We'll do the repetition of the Amidah on page 223. We'll join together with Alan on page 225 for the Kedusha.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Eloheinu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzhak Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel Elohei Leah Ha'el HaGadol HaGibor VaNorah Eloyon Gomer Chasadim Tovim V'konei HaKol V'zocher Chasdei Avod U'mevii Goel Livnei V'nehem L'man Shmo B'Ava Melech Ozer V'Keder Moshiach U'Magen Baruch atah Adonai Magen Avraham V'Kei Tzarah אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מלחמת אברהם להושיע, מוריד הטל, מכלכל חיים וחסד, מלחמת ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים והופך חולים ומציל אסורים, מקיים אותו לשנה עבר, מרמוך בר גבורות ומידו מלך, מלך מבינוך חיים מצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיי מתים, ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיי המתים. נקדש את שמך בעולם, כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום, ככתוב על יד נביאך, וקרא זה אל זה ואמר. קדוש, 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 ענה צבאו, מלוך על הארץ כבודו, למעתם ברוך יאמרו. ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו, דברי קודשך כתוב לאמור. ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהי ציון, לדור ודור, הללויה. לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, לנצח נצים קדושתך נקדיש, ושבחך אלוהינו, מבינו למוש לעולם ועד. כי המלך גדול וקדוש אתה, ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש. אתה אחד ושמך אחד, מכל חסר גוי אחד בארץ, תפארת גדולה ועטרת ישועה. יום מנוחה קדושה לעמך נתת, אברהם יגר, יצחק ירנן, יעקב ובניו ינוחו בהם. מנוחת אהבה ונדבה, מנוחת אמת ואמונה, מנוחת שלום ושלווה והשקט ובטח, מנוחה שלמה שאתה רוצה בה, יכירו בניך וידעו כי מאיתך היא מנוחתם, ועל מנוחתם יקדישו את שמך. אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו, עצב מנוחתנו, קדשנו במצוותיך, ותן חלקנו בתורתך, סבנו מטובך, ושמחנו בישועתך, וטהר ליבנו לעבדך באמת, והנחילנו אדוני אלוהינו, בעבר ורצון שבת קודשך, וינוחו בת ישראל מקדשי שמך, ברוך אתה אדוני, מקדש השבת. וצא אדוני אלוהינו במחסו את תפילתם, והשבת עבודה לדביר ביתך, תפילתם באהבה תקבל ברצון, ותהי לרצון תמיד עבודת ישראל עמך. אלוהינו אלוהי אבותינו, יעלה ויבוא ויגיע ויראה ויוצא וישמע, ויפקד ויזהר זיכרוננו ופקדוננו, וזיכרון אבותינו, וזיכרון משיח בן דוד עבדך, וזיכרון ירושלים עיר קודשך, וזיכרון כלך בישראל לפניך, לפלטה לטובה, לכן על חסד ורחמים לכם ולשלום, ביום חג המצות הזה. זוכרנו אנא אלוהינו בו לטובה, ופוקדנו בו לברכה, והושיענו בו לחיים. ובדבר ישועה ורחמים, חוסכנו רחם עלינו, והושיענו, כי אליך עינינו, כי המלך הנון רחום אתה, ותחזינה עינינו, בשובך לציון ברחמים. ברוך אתה אדוני, המחזיר שכינתו לציון, מודים אנחנו לך. הטוב כי לך לרחמך, ורחם כי לתמך חסדיך, מעולם קיווינו לך. ועל כולם יתברך ויתרומם שמך מלכנו, תמיד לעולם ועד. וכל העם יודוך סלה, ויהללו את שמך באמת. האש ותן רזותנו סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני, התושמך לך נאה להודות. שלום רב על ישראל עמך, ועל כל יושבי תבל תשים לעולם. כתוב מלך, אדון לכל השלום, וטוב בעיניך. לברך את עמך ישראל בכל עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. ברוך אתה אדוני, המברך את עמו ישראל בשלום. יתגדל ויגדש ברבה, בעמד יברכי ותבמליך מלכותי בחייכון ובימיכון וחי לכל בית ישראל, בגלה בזמן קריב עמו אמן. יש ברבה ברך לעולם ולעולמי עלמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם וינצח ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי קדושה בריחו. לאל אמין כה ברכתה ושירתה, תושבתה ונחמתה דרמן בעלמא ועמו אמן. תתקבל צלותם וברכות לכל ישראל, קדם ושמר ועמו אמן. יהי שלום רב מן שמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועמו אמן. עושה שלום עממה והוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועמו אמן. עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ויאמר הוא אדוני אחד ושמו אחד. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעלמא דברה קרותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון ובימיכון ובחיי לכל בית ישראל, בעגלה בזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ולעולמי עלמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקדושה בריחו. שירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דמיון בעלמא ואמרו אמן. יש למה רבה מן שמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Because of our tardy start, which it was really lovely to be able to chat a little bit about Pesach, I was going to say kill the time, but it really wasn't, to enjoy the time before we started. We have to stop learning in about 17 minutes. So we will learn a little bit, but I'm going to start teaching while you're getting food. So if people want to get up and get some food and then come back and eat, totally fine. There is really delicious matzah and tuna salad and macarons and fruit. Not sure what else there could be for Sudash Lishi, but I'll start teaching, and then we will get through as much of the teaching as we can, and then we'll go to Mariv. No, not macaroni, macaroons. Different cuisine. Oh, sure. Thank you. I only made 10, so these are 12 people, but if you want to give couples,
Parshat.
Yeah.
Do you know Bobby Dora Mead's Hebrew name?
I've definitely called him up for an aliyah before, but it's not coming to me right now.
Okay, so I was gonna joke,
Yeah,
I'm very glad he was not the 10th.
okay.
His name is Mashiach.
Oh, really? Oh, that I didn't.
Arrived, we can read Torah.
Right, exactly. That's very good. That's very, very
His
good.
name is also Mashiach.
Yeah. That's awesome. I called someone up to the Torah recently, who's also an Iranian Jew, and his name was David ben David. And I was like, wow, that's a great name. Very easy to remember, right? Or like everyone in the family has the same name.
My older daughter's husband's father's name
Uh-huh.
is Binyamin ben Binyamin.
Oh, yeah. Is he Sephardic?
No, Binyamin, he was named after an uncle whose name was Binyamin.
Wow.
Nico's fiance is Eliyahu ben Eliyahu.
Whose fiance?
Nico's.
Oh, Nico's. I just didn't hear who you said. Nico's fiance is what?
Eliyahu ben Eliyahu.
Oh, so maybe it wasn't David. Maybe I'm just remembering David as just a general name, but so maybe it was him because I did call him up for an aliyah recently. That's very funny. Okay, so there are sheets at the tables. When you get food, feel free to sit down and check out where we're at. So as I mentioned before, as a little preamble, to see if we were going to get a minyan, I opened up Achrei Mot, which is this coming week's parsha post Pesach, and I was struck by the Or HaChaim's commentary and how very intense he seems to get on this one verse and really just on one aspect of the first verse. So I decided, okay, why not? Like, let's just dive deeply into his commentary. Let's see what he has to say. And as I said before, there's pages and pages of his commentary. I just took a few of the excerpts, and you'll see it's a 4-page source sheet. So it's longer than it normally is. We're not going to get to everything, but there's much more where this comes from. So if you're interested, you can go on Safaria and see even more of what he says. But this is a snippet that I thought was most relevant and interesting. He goes on a few tangents. I didn't insert all those tangents into the space here. So we're going to look at this first. It's the first line. Marshall just read it a few minutes ago. The first line of Parshat Achrei Mot. And it says, Vayedaber Adonai el Moshe Achrei Mot, Shnei b'nei Aharon. So God said to Moses, after the death of the 2 sons of Aaron. So remember that the sons of Aaron die, and then we have 2 parshiot, Tazria and Metzora, in between, and we hear all about skin disease and all those fun things. And then the Torah brings us back and says, oh, wait a second, let's get back into this story of Aaron's 2 sons who died. Bekorvatam lifnei Adonai vayamutu. In their closeness to before God, and they died. So the 2 sons of Aaron died, and it seems to be saying after the et nachta, right? So after the trope comma, so to speak, in their closeness to God, they then died. So without even getting into the Or HaChaim, you can imagine that there are multiple questions here. First of all, why are you reminding us of this now? Like, we know they died. Why is this coming up again? Another question is, it says they died. Why are you telling us twice in one sentence that they died, right? We know that. It says they died, and then you said again that they died. And the question that I've always had is, why would the closeness to God be the thing that kills them? Right? Isn't the idea of being close to God? Rabbi Klickfeld gave a beautiful, I have never heard someone talk about Shir HaShirim the way he did this morning, seemingly extemporaneously, about Shir HaShirim and how we actually want to get close to God, that's what Shir HaShirim is all about. If we take it out of the context of a couple or 2 lovers, and we take it into the context of God and the people, that's exactly what we're yearning for. We're yearning for closeness, and yet Aaron's children die because of it. Okay, so those are kind of the standout questions that if we were the Or HaChaim, I'm sure we could also come up with our own commentaries on. So we're going to dive into the Or HaChaim, and you're going to see that he has lots of questions. He has 5. I even copied this in color so that you could see that I highlighted the different questions that he had. It's in color, right? Yeah, okay. That he has 5 questions, and I've highlighted them. We might not get to all of them today, but we'll see what we can do. Okay, so the Or HaChaim says, first, why doesn't the Torah spell out what God told Moshe on this occasion? Right? It says that God spoke to Moses, but then it actually doesn't. This happens a lot in the Torah. It doesn't actually say what God said to Moses. It just says God then spoke to Moses, and seemingly it was either about their death or the fact that they died. Okay? Secondly, why did the Torah have to add that this communication occurred after the death of 2 of Aaron's sons? What bearing does that have on the content of God's message? Right? Why do we need to know that God approached Moshe after Aaron's sons, his nephews, died? Why couldn't the Torah just open up and say, God spoke to Moshe, right? Why go back to Parshiot to remind us that this is the moment that God is now speaking to Moshe? Thirdly, why did the Torah have to add the words bekorvotam lifnei Adonai vayamutu? In their closeness to the presence of God, they then died. If the Torah wanted to tell us the reason these sons died, we've already been told this, right? In chapter 10 of Leviticus, we were told that they died because of an Eish Zara. So why now are you telling us that they died because of the closeness to God? And even if God is defining those 2 things as the same, why use different words? Right? We've already been told. Why need to tell us in a different way? Fourthly, the purple did not come out as well, sorry. Fourthly, at the end of thirdly, it comes up with this question that is, there's one of the things that I said a few minutes ago. What is so terrible about wanting to come close to the presence of God, right? Why is that something that would have killed them? Fourthly, the word vayamutu, they died, is quite superfluous, seeing the verse commenced with the mention of their deaths. Right, at the beginning it says they died, now we're saying they died again. Fifthly, why did the Torah use the additional letter vav in the word vayamutu? Okay, so those are the Or HaChaim's 5 questions on, 12 words or however many words are here, right? He has a lot to say. So we're gonna go straight into this. I didn't give you the Hebrew because it was an 8-page source sheet, but there is Hebrew, and if you're interested in it, go onto Safaria and find it. I didn't want you to have too much paper in your hands. Okay. It appears that the Torah tries to tell us that God warned Moshe not to think that seeing that he was closer to the kingdom of heaven and at home in God's palace, that he could enter the sanctuary at will. Okay, so this is answering this question of why in this moment was Moshe told in kind of context of Aaron's children's death. And you'll see why in a second. Even though God addressed this command to Aaron, Moshe was not to think that he was not included in this restriction, because the Torah itself testifies that Moshe's prophecy was superior to that of Aaron. God had to speak to Moshe to warn him not to misunderstand the prohibition God was about to issue to Aaron concerning entry into the sanctuary, i.e. the Holy of Holies, right? So here we are to understand that if God were to tell Moshe whatever he's telling them in the context of their death, that just like we do with a child, right? Remember when you touched the stove and it was really hot? Well, now while I'm cooking pasta 3 months later, make sure to not put your hand on the stove, right? We bring back a memory to teach a lesson so that people can associate with what the lesson might be based off of prior experience. So that's what the Or HaChaim seems to think is happening here in terms of context. God said, "Vaydaber Adonai el Moshe." The directive was addressed exclusively to Moshe. God spoke to him shortly after the death of these sons of Aaron, who had attempted to come too close, as a result of which they died. The Torah meant that although they were the sons of Aaron, meaning that Aaron seemed to have this access that therefore his sons should have, I skipped a line. Highly placed personages, so much so that the Torah testified that their death was due to their closeness to God. God did not have pity on them in spite of their closeness. Right, so all the more so, right, rabbis do this all the time in their speaking. He's not spelling it out for us, but what the Orach Chaim is basically trying to say is, if they were close to God and they died because of their closeness, you, Moshe, who are one step away from that closeness to God, all the more so you would die if you got that close. Okay, so that seems to be the reason why we're talking about this around the event of their death. Now, this line I thought was quite important in this passage. The principal lesson to be derived from all this is that he who occupies a privileged position is not entitled to take liberties with God, who has granted this privilege in the first place. So, what is that saying as an answer, or like a chetzi answer, somewhat of an answer to this question here? What's the nafka mina coming out here? What's the general understanding coming out, especially from that last line here, as to why does Moshe need to be reminded of this? Or why is it important for us to know? I think it's a general rule. Mark, do we just...
No one's above the law.
No one's above the law. Exactly. And not only that no one's above the law, but you have to follow the law with caution, right? If you shouldn't think that you're above the law and run the red light, but you also shouldn't speed up when it turns yellow, because you know that as soon as it turns red, you're not supposed to go, right? You should still be, even though everyone in Los Angeles seems to think that yellow is still green. But the idea here is that there is a standard, and not only should you not go over that threshold, but you shouldn't even try to, get close to whatever that boundary is, right?
You have to be held accountable.
Right. So not only should Aaron's sons have been, Aaron should have been held accountable for his son's actions, but all the more so now, Moshe should learn from those actions and be held accountable if he thinks he can override these rules and regulations. Any other thoughts here? I know we're going through this much faster than I normally would, but yeah, Paula.
Doing the fence around the,
Yes, totally. Totally.
okay, let's not even tempt ourselves with that, so.
Sure.
We're not gonna carry money, so we're not tempted to spend.
Great. So Paula's talking about a rule that we hear mostly when we're talking about things like kashrut or Shabbat or laws that have specific boundaries to them, but we take it one step further and we put there's a phrase in Hebrew that says we put a fence around the law, right? We actually surround the law in something with even more boundary so that you can't even cross into it by accident, right? It's why in just a few minutes, actually not in a few minutes ago, we could have been done with Shabbat, right? That the sun set, but we actually need to wait until it's pitch black and there are stars because we don't want to, by accident, end Shabbat too early, right? Or Paula gave the example of carrying money. The carrying of the money is not such a big deal, except for that we've created this boundary such that if you carry money, you might then be tempted to actually use that money, which could lead to mixed dancing, right? Yeah, Hannah. We don't actually know. It's a really good question. When it first comes up that they died, lots of the rabbis talk about how old they might have been and was it an appropriate punishment for them? Should the punishment have really been Aaron's as the parent? It's a great question. Like we assume that they were old enough to know what they were doing in terms of the approach of the space that they were entering into. I have no way of knowing, but we don't think they were babies, but we also don't think that they were grown adults.
But were they more enthusiastic than a regular parishioner than Aaron himself?
More enthusiastic in what way?
Worshiping God and having.
Totally.
So they were even more enthusiastic.
That's what we're going to see in a second, is that they seemed, I mean, that goes back to Mark's point about like you can't be above the law, right? That they seemed to think that because they had this closeness, they had this attachment, that they had privileges that they actually don't have. There's still rules, right? I feel very close to people who seem very far away to other people based off of experiences I've had with them, and that doesn't mean that I can abuse that right to feel a closeness to someone who needs to be seen in a certain light or have certain boundaries around their livelihood to keep themselves at a distance. Oh, so that's a difference. That's back when we were told that they were killed by an Eish Zara. Now we're dealing with something different, which is that they really had this closeness that brought them in, which killed them. There might be commentaries on that. I just don't have them in front of me, so I don't know. But yeah, they might have just understood differently what it meant to. I have a very good example. I'll try to make this generic. A family member of mine is connected to a famous actress, and therefore that famous actress is someone who I've known for a very long time and know in a very different context than other people on the street when they're around her. And yet, I don't, just because I have this person's cell phone number, for example, doesn't mean that any time that I need to spruce up a program at Temple Beth or, want something to happen that might drum up some attention, that I'm going to text that person. That would be an abuse of that relationship, right? So I know that God's not a famous actress, but the idea here being that if you have a closeness to somebody that there should still be boundaries around, that you shouldn't step over those boundaries like his sons did in bringing whatever incense they brought or in feeling too close to then overstep. Yeah, they were killed. Okay, so let's go to the next piece here. Another aspect of the word bekorvatam may be that these people were closer to God than anyone, right? We've kind of already established that they at least think that. Had Moshe been closer to God than Nadav and Avihu, God should have demonstrated the lesson of bekorvei akadesh, I think. Bekrovai? Oh, okay. By punishing Moses for some minor infraction he was guilty of. If God chose Nadav and Avihu instead to demonstrate this principle, they must have been the people closest to God at that time. So this is one of these theological principles that I'm not always super excited to think about too deeply, because basically what is being said here is that because God felt so close to them, the punishment could be that dire. Right? The punishment could be extreme, because if God felt that close, well, God is an extreme entity, and therefore the punishment could be extreme. But if Moshe had, well, it actually doesn't even say this, but I guess I'm claiming if Moshe had done something similar to this, then Moshe would have been the one who was punished. Perhaps God explained all of this to Moshe on the occasion so that afterwards Moshe said to Aaron, "This is what God has said to say, I will be sanctified by those who are close to me." Oh, sorry, that's where it came from. Thanks, Stevie. We would then have to assume that the content of God's communication in this verse that we're looking at was said to Moshe immediately after the death of Nadav and Avihu. The fact that their deaths had been reported earlier does not matter, as we have a principle that the Torah is not bound to report events in chronological order. So what they're saying here is that based off of something that came earlier in the Torah, that what we're actually hearing now potentially explains that which came earlier, and then he's just reminding us that there's nothing early or late in the Torah. It's just all stuff that we should learn, and that there is something to learn here based off of those who I feel sanctified to or feel sanctified by me are therefore going to feel close to me. I'm just going to keep going, though feel free to make a comment in just a second. I'm going to just keep going and then pause, and if people have questions, you can ask them, or we're not going to go through the rest of this completely. I'm going to go to the line that I underlined here in the next section. The death of Aaron's sons was due to their having entered the sanctuary on the way to the Holy of Holies without permission. So there was some kind of rule that they broke. Right? However, they had access to the Holy of Holies, right? Which you already need to have a certain type of closeness to have that access. So they had access, but they still had rules, to go back to this idea of like, there's always going to be a boundary. While it is true that in Parshat Shmini, the reason for their deaths given is this strange fire, our verse teaches that they would have been guilty of death for merely entering the Holy of Holies, even if they had not brought the strange fire into the sanctuary. The Torah stressed the word vayamutu, they died, so that we should not think that Nadav and Avihu succeeded to carry out their intention to enter the Holy of Holies. They died before they could carry out their intention. So this is bringing a whole other dimension to this, which is maybe there was some kind of strange fire, but the Or HaChaim believes that it wasn't even necessarily put to use yet, but rather that intentionality of doing something that they were not supposed to do, God knowing that and then punishing them for that. That's, to me, even more disturbing, right? That there was an inclination in their minds that they might do something, not even an action that was yet performed, and yet they had such, some would say, the worst of all punishments. Their lives were ended. The Torah is at pains to let us know this in the event a person would be willing to enter the Holy of Holies, even at the cost of their life. So now this kind of smooths it out a little bit, right? That like you might be willing to do something that is so important to you, even if you know it might cost you your life, right? Because you feel close enough to that experience, you feel close enough to whatever kind of opportunity that is given to you. There were people who left anywhere, but America specifically are the people that I know, to go fight on October 8th in Israel, not knowing what was going to happen to them because they felt strongly, right? So it seems what the Or HaChaim believes here is that it wasn't just that there was an intention, it was that there was knowledge that there could be punishment, and they still wanted to enter in. We are warned here that the effort would be futile, as God would not allow such a person to realize their intention. The Torah does not warn us about this because it presumes a criminal intent by someone who insists on entering the Holy of Holies. So the Or HaChaim is still kind of digging at the sons a little bit by saying, if they wanted to enter, they had what? Exactly. Right. They had a premeditated reason, or they had what's the word I'm looking for? They had a preconceived notion as to what was going to happen, and they didn't care. And the Or HaChaim seems to think that it was not a good one. They weren't entering for the right reasons. I can't think of the eloquent term for that right this second, but it'll come to me. On the contrary, the assumption is that such an attempt would be prompted by the religious fervor of the individual. Now, this I actually think is something that we see all the time. And again, if we had more time, I would ask for examples around this. We see this all the time in any kind of extremism, in any religion. We see people doing things in the name of that religion. Again, I'm not singling out any religion. It happens in ours as well. Doing something to an extreme because they think that religious experience is going to kind of cloud any type of punishment that might come for the extremism that they're putting out into the world, or for the action that they are taking in the name of that religion, right? It seems that the Or HaChaim thought that they were doing that they were in the name of their religiosity or their spiritual closeness or whatever it was. They were doing something that they knew there might be a punishment for. Maybe they believed there wouldn't be because they were too close to God, who knows? But they were doing something in the name of their religion that could have a terrible outcome, and did. Yeah.
Isn't there a midrash, that the commission, they were talking about drinking before the two sons died, and there's a midrash that they went in there with drunk, and it was like drunk.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a midrash or a commentary, but yes. Yeah. Right, that they might have some kind of illicit behavior that led them to make this mistake, I guess you could call it, to take this action in a way that was not their full ideal selves, but rather.
But one could argue that how could you kill someone for doing an action when if they're drunk and they're not fully
Yeah, yeah. There are far too many lawyers in this room to say that never happens, but yeah, I mean, you would want to believe in a world in which that wasn't the case, and I think there's often times where very large mistakes, are made that change people's lives forever based off of drugs or alcohol or things that they're on, and depending on where they live, they get really harsh punishments. Okay, we're gonna read the last one here. I know we're skipping like 2.5 pages, but I also don't want to keep you until 10 p.m. Okay. So I want to read the last one on page 4 here. I also think the one right before is very interesting, but this last one I think is a beautiful way of kind of just rounding it all out. Another approach to the word vayamutu focuses on the nature of these sons' deaths rather than on the fact of their deaths. The Torah writes, "Bekorvatam lifnei Hashem," to describe that due to their love for God, these people came too near to the celestial source of light, which has a deadly effect on people. This is the mystical dimension of what is commonly known as death by divine kiss, the kind of death experienced by both Aaron and Moshe eventually. The deaths of Nadav and Avihu were similar to the death of all other completely righteous people. The only difference was that in the case of the deaths of people such as Moshe and Aaron, God's kiss of death approaches them, whereas in this case, Nadav and Avihu approach the kiss of death. It's a really, and the Or HaChaim goes on and on. I just chose to end it here, but he didn't. This is a really beautiful way of, even if they were crazy to think that they could get away with something, that they were seeking closeness to God. They were seeking closeness to a relationship that they felt either far from or felt like there was an element of closeness that they could grow even closer to. And I just love that the Or HaChaim puts it into perspective in the way in which Aaron and Moshe also die, because it's as if they were still seen as these powerful and important human beings that were in relationship with God even at their death, right? It might not have been the same kind of death, and it might not have been the way in which, or for reasons that we agree with, but the fact that God was there and present with two people who clearly wanted to be closer to God, there's something very sweet about that. It's kind of like in Les Mis, where she's dying and the person she wants to love stays with her, even though he doesn't love her, right? Like there's something kind of weird, but also really beautiful about the fact that God is the one that kills them, but the Or HaChaim at least believes that it's in the same way that God was with those who God loves, in their final moments, which I just think is a powerful way of looking at this. I'm sorry we didn't have a chance to get through each and everything and for people to share more of their thoughts, but I hope that you'll read this. And if you have Sefaria and know how to navigate it, you can read all the way through the Or HaChaim's full commentary from start to finish. I think it's important often to just look deeply into one commentator's brain and be able to say, like, where was this guy at, right? When he looked at this verse, what was he thinking specifically? Usually we kind of see a plethora of thoughts all across centuries and geographical spaces, but this is one guy who sat down and wrote about one verse and really 3 words to tell us what he thought. So I thought that was a fascinating way of getting into this parsha this week. Okay, we are going to do Birkat Hamazon very quickly. We're just going to do the Zimun and the first paragraph. So Joey, if you would like to lead us, you are more than welcome to. And then we're going to do a quick Mariv, and I should still have you out of here on time. But does everybody do you want to tell us the page number? 47. Thank you. Az yemaleh chok pinu shanenu rina Vagoyim hidi ladonai la sotimela hidi ladonai sotim lanu haynu semechim. Shuv Adonai et shevitenu kafikim b'negev hazorim. Berina iksoru halach elech uvachon semeshech hazara bo yavo verina no se alumotav. Yeah, Yishimana mevarach metave adolam. Baruch Eloheinu shachanu mishala uftuva ochayinu. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Hazan et haolam kulo b'tshuva v'chen b'chesed u'rachamim. Hunot lechem lechol basar ki leolam chasto. Uvtuvo hagadol tamid l'chased lanu ve'yachsed lanu. Leholam va'ed ba'avur shemo hagadol ki hozanim farnes lakol umetiv lakol umechin mazon lechol briotav asher bara baruch atah Adonai hazan et hakol. Okay, we'll begin Mariv on page 264. If you're able to do so, please rise. Vehu rachum mechaper avamid lo yashchi vehi bala shiva pavler kol chamato Adonai Hoshea hamelech ya'anenu veyom korenu baruchu et Adonai hamvorach Baruch Adonai hamvorach le'olam va'ed Uma'avir yom u'mevi laila mavdil ben yom u'ben laila Adonai tzvaot shemo el chai v'kayam taminim l'cholenu le'olam va'ed Baruch ata Adonai hama'ariv v'aravim avat olam et Yisrael Ve'avatecha tasir mimenu le'olamim baruch ata Adonai ohev amo Yisrael Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Adonai Elohim emev v'menachos okayim alekinu. Umalchuto berazan kiblu alehem Moshe v'nei Yisrael lechanu shira besimcha rabba v'yamru chulam micha mocha ba'alim Adonai mika mocha nedar b'kodesh norati lot osef elem malchutecha ra'u v'anecha bokei yom lifnei Moshe ze'ili anu v'yamru Adonai yimloch leolam ונאמר כיפת אדוני את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו שלום ועונים לכבוד פסל הסופר שלמך ודקן ועשר ועבדך ושמור צאתנו ובואנו לחיים ושלום יתהווה עד עולם ברוך אתה אדוני שומר עמו ישראל לעד ברוך אדוני לעולם אמן ברוך אדוני מסן שלום שלום הללויה ברוך אדוני מסן כי המלכות שלך היא ולעולם לעד תמלוך בכבוד כי אין לנו מלך אלא אתה ברוך אתה אדוני המלך בכבודו תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד ועל כל מעשיו. In a moment after Chatzikash, we'll go into the whispered Amidah. Just a reminder that there are 2 paragraphs to add, one for the end of Shabbat and one for Pesach. יתקדע ויקדש שמי רבה, והמה דברה כרתי והמליך מלכותי וחייכון וימכון וחיי לכל בית ישראל, בגלה בזמן קריב ואמרו אמן, יהי שמי רבה וברך לעולם לעמי עמיה, יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם וינשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתעלוש מקדושה, בריחו לעילם מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תשבחתה ונחמתה, דאמירן בעלמא ואמרו אמן. If you have not yet finished your Amidah, please continue at your own pace. Because it is Chol HaMoed, we skip over going back to Vayi Noam, and so we go straight to Kaddish Shalom, which is on page 280, and then right into Aleinu. יתקדע ויקדע שמי רבה, בהמה דברך ירתה וימליך מלכותי בחייכון וימיכון ובחיי לכל בית ישראל, בעגלה בזמן קריב ואמרו אמן, יהי שמי רבה וברך לעולם עולמי עלמיה, יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם וינשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתעלוש מקודשה, בריחו לעילם מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תשבחתה ונחמתה, דאמירן בעלמה ואמרו אמן, תתקבל זאת ההון ובדהון לכל ישראל, קודם ובהון דבי שמיה ואמרו אמן, יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן, עושה שלום מרמיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן, עלינו לשבח ואדוני כל התהילה. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד. Mourner's Kaddish, page 282. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה בעלמא דברה קירותי וימליך מלכותי בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן, יהי שמי רבה מברך לעולם לעולמי עלמיה, יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי קודשה בריחו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דאמירן בעלמה ואמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן, עושה שלום ברמיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. All right, let's do Havdalah and then we will count the Omer right after. Yeah. Well, you could do it before. The reason I do it after is because Havdalah is going to end the day, and so then we're really in this case, day 5, right? So just getting us into that next day. You can do it anytime that it's dark outside, though. So I don't know. I feel weird counting the day before I'm ending the day with Havdalah. It could be totally a me thing, but thanks. I mean, you definitely can't do it like at the beginning of Mariv. You definitely have to do it either before or after Havdalah. Right, exactly. Right. Correct. It just feels weird to me to do it knowing that Havdalah is what's going to end the day. Hinei el Yeshuati eftach velo efchad ki ozi vezimrat ya Adonai vayehi li lishua ushafte ma'im besason mimaynei ha-Yeshua l'Adonai ha-Yeshua Alamcha v'irchatecha sela Adonai tzevaot imanu miskav lanu Elohei Yaakov sela Adonai tzevaot Ashrei Adam boteach ba Adonai Hoshia Hamelech Ya'aneinu Ve'yam Koreinu La Yehudim Hayta Ora Besimcha Ve'sason V'ikar Ken Tiheh Lanu Kosi Yeshuotesa Nayekra Yainanai Yananai Nai Yainanai Yananai Baruch Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei minei v'samim. Thank you. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei me'orei ha'esh. Oh boy. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamavdil ben kodesh lechol, ben or lechoshech, ben Yisrael le'amim, ben yom hashvihi le'sheshet yamei hamaseh. Baruch atah Adonai, hamavdil ben kodesh lechol. Hamavdil ben kodesh lechol. Chatoteinu imcho, zareinu v'chaspeinu yad v'yad b'kacho, v'kach kochavim v'layla. Zareinu v'chaspeinu kacho, v'kach kochavim v'layla. So we're gonna we can do that after if you want, but we're gonna count the Omer, which is on page 63. For those of you who were here earlier this morning, I'm suggesting that this year we count the days of the Omer and also add the number of days that the hostages have been in Gaza. So we'll say the day for today, and then we'll add 204, which is the day, the number of days that they have been in captivity. True. Hineni muchanum zuman, hineni muchanum zuman, hineni muchanum zuman, lekayem mitzvat aseh shel sfirat haomer, hineni muchanum zuman, kamo shekatuv b'Torah. Hineni muchanum zuman, usfartem lachem mimachorat haShabbat. Hineni muchanum zuman, miyom aviachem et omer hatnufa. Hineni muchanum zuman, sheva shavatot mimotiyana mimachorat haShabbat sheshvi tisperu 50 yom. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu mitzvotav v'tzivanu al sfirat haomer. Hayom chamisha yamim laomer. Chamisha yamim, which is 204, or in Israel 205 days. Shavua tov, moadim lesimcha. Anything you need to know about Pesach and anything happening is online. Check it out there.
Spoken like a rabbi on the way to Camp Ramah.
I've said the announcement a million times. You've heard it. Okay. Thank you all for being here. Yes. Oh, we usually go back to a part of the service that we said earlier. We usually go back to it on like a regular Shabbat evening, I guess. But during Kol HaMoed we don't.